She met him at 8 p.m. By midnight, she was in his bed. Not because she's promiscuous, not because she was drunk, not because he was exceptionally handsome or wealthy. She slept with him because he triggered something in her brain that bypasses every rational decision-making process she's developed over years of careful dating. Right now, there are men walking among us who possess an almost supernatural ability to accelerate intimacy with women, not through manipulation or coercion, but through an understanding of female psychology so profound that women feel compelled to surrender their usual defenses within hours of meeting them. And here's what will disturb you. These men aren't necessarily the ones you'd expect. They're not always the most attractive. They're not always the most successful. They're often not even the most charming in conventional terms. But they understand something about the female psyche that creates what evolutionary psychologists call accelerated mate selection. The phenomenon where a woman's brain decides within minutes that this man is worth the ultimate risk. By the end of this video, you'll understand why logic has nothing to do with sexual attraction, why safety paradoxically kills desire, and why the men who get instant intimacy are often the ones who seem to care about it least. Section 1. The Primal Override. When ancient brain meets modern woman, let me start with a psychological truth that will make you question everything you've been told about female sexuality. Women don't think their way into bed. They feel their way there, and that feeling, that sudden overwhelming compulsion to be physically intimate with someone they barely know, isn't random. It's the result of specific psychological triggers that activate what neuroscientist Dr. Helen Fisher calls the primitive mating brain. Here's what's happening neurologically when a woman experiences instant sexual attraction. Her ancient lyric system completely overrides her modern prefrontal cortex. The part of her brain responsible for rational decision-making, risk assessment, and social propriety literally goes offline, while the part of her brain designed for mate selection during humanity's most dangerous periods takes complete control. This isn't a character flaw or a sign of poor judgment. This is evolutionary psychology, working exactly as it was designed. For 200,000 years, human females had to make lightning-fast decisions about potential mates in environments where survival was never guaranteed. A woman who took months to evaluate her partner's suitability might not live long enough to reproduce. So, evolution equipped women with the ability to rapidly assess a man's genetic fitness, protection capability, and reproductive value, often within the first few minutes of interaction. The men who trigger this ancient response understand something that modern dating culture has completely forgotten. Attraction isn't created through comfort, it's created through controlled danger. Comfort activates what psychologists call the befriending system, the part of a woman's brain designed for social bonding and long-term relationship building. Tension activates the mating system, the part designed for immediate sexual selection. The men women sleep with instantly are the ones who bypass the befriending system entirely. This is why the nice guy who does everything right often gets friend-zoned, while the guy who seems slightly dangerous, unpredictable, or challenging gets taken home the same night. It's not fair, it's not logical, and it's not conscious, but it's absolutely real. The Stoic philosophers understood this principle in a different context. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." In the context of sexual attraction, this means that for intense desire to begin, a woman's normal decision-making processes have to end, temporarily suspended by psychological triggers that convince her primitive brain this man represents a unique genetic opportunity. The men who create instant attraction aren't trying to make women comfortable. They're trying to make women feel something they've never felt before. And that feeling, that mixture of excitement, uncertainty, and primal recognition is what drives a woman to abandon her usual caution and surrender to impulse. Section 2. The Danger Paradox. Why Safety Kills Sexual Desire. Here's a truth that will shatter every piece of dating advice you've ever received. The safer you make a woman feel, the less sexually attracted to you she becomes. I know this sounds counterintuitive. We've been told that women want security, stability, emotional safety, and in many contexts this is absolutely true. But when it comes to raw sexual attraction, the kind that makes a woman Abandon her logical mind and follow her body's impulses. Safety is the enemy. Let me explain what's happening psychologically. Dr. Esther Pell's research on sexuality and relationships reveals that sexual desire requires what she calls psychological distance and erotic tension. When we feel completely safe with someone, when we can predict their behavior, when there's no element of risk or uncertainty, our brains categorize that person as family rather than potential mate. This is why married couples often struggle with declining sexual passion. It's why women often report losing attraction to men who become too emotionally available too quickly. And it's why the men who create instant sexual chemistry often possess qualities that on the surface seem like red flags. They're unpredictable, they're slightly dangerous, they make women feel slightly off balance. But, and this is crucial, they do this in a way that feels exciting rather than threatening. There's a fine line between attractive danger and actual danger. And the men who understand this distinction are the ones women find irresistible. Let me illustrate with another example. The Stoic concept of preferred indifference applies perfectly here. The ancient philosophers understood that external circumstances, including other people's approval, should be preferred when available, but never necessary for our well-being. The men who create instant attraction embody this principle naturally. They prefer a woman's interest, but they don't need it. They enjoy her company, but they don't depend on it for their happiness. This emotional independence creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive pattern known to human psychology. When a woman can't quite secure your approval, can't completely predict your interest, can't fully control your responses, her brain becomes obsessed with solving the puzzle you represent. This obsession manifests as what we call sexual attraction. But here's where most men get this completely wrong. They try to create artificial mystery or play games. They think being dangerous means being rude or unavailable. They confuse emotional independence with emotional unavailability. True attractive danger isn't about what you withhold. It's about what you embody. It's the danger of being with someone who has strong opinions, who won't change himself to please you, who has a life exciting enough that you might have to compete for his attention. It's the danger of being with someone who might inspire you to become more than you are, which means admitting you're not already everything you could be. This kind of danger doesn't threaten a woman's physical safety. It threatens her psychological comfort zone, and for reasons rooted in millions of years of evolution, that threat is one of the most powerful aphrodisiacs in existence. Section 3. The status game. Why hierarchy drives sexual selection. I'm about to tell you something that will make you uncomfortable, but it's essential for understanding why some men create instant sexual attraction while others don't. Women are biologically programmed to be sexually attracted to men who demonstrate higher social status than they currently have access to. Notice I didn't say higher social status in general. I said higher than what they currently have access to. This is a crucial distinction that explains why a wealthy woman might be instantly attracted to a motorcycle mechanic who carries himself like he owns the world while remaining indifferent to millionaires who seek her approval. Status isn't about money. It isn't about job titles. It isn't about what you own. Status is about how you carry yourself in relation to other people and circumstances. Evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss's research shows that female sexual attraction is fundamentally tied to what he calls resource potential and social dominance. But in our modern context, these ancient triggers get activated by psychological dominance rather than physical dominance, by confidence rather than aggression, by self-possession rather than possessions. The men who create instant attraction understand this intuitively. They don't try to impress women with their achievements. They embody the psychological traits that high-status men develop naturally. Let me break this down with specific examples. Low-status behavior, seeking approval, explaining yourself constantly, being overly accommodating, changing your opinions to match hers, being available whenever she wants. High-status behavior, having strong opinions, making decisions confidently, being comfortable with disagreement, having priorities that don't revolve around her, maintaining your own standards and boundaries. Here's where this gets psychologically Interesting. Women often can't consciously explain why they're attracted to high status behavior. They just know that certain men make them feel something that others don't. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." The high status man doesn't look around for validation or comparison. He's internally referenced. His sense of worth comes from his own standards and achievements, not from other people's opinions. And women find this internally referenced confidence absolutely intoxicating. But here's the paradox that destroys most men's understanding of this principle. You cannot fake high-status behavior. Women's attraction systems are incredibly sophisticated at detecting authentic versus performed confidence. When you try to act high status without actually developing the internal characteristics that create genuine high-status behavior, women sense the incongruence immediately. They see through the performance to the insecurity underneath, and the attraction disappears. This is why pickup artist techniques often work initially but fail long-term. They teach men to perform high-status behaviors without developing high-status psychology. The performance might create initial interest, but it can't sustain attraction once a woman starts looking deeper. Real high-status behavior comes from having something genuinely valuable to protect. It comes from having developed yourself, your skills, your character, your purpose, to the point where you have legitimate confidence in your own worth. You're not trying to prove you're valuable. You know you're valuable because you've done the work to become valuable. When a woman encounters this authentic self-possession, her ancient mating instincts recognize it as exactly what her ancestors needed for survival and successful reproduction. The man who can protect and provide not through desperation or trying hard, but through natural competence and unshakable self-respect. This triggers what anthropologists call hypergamy, the female tendency to be attracted to men of higher social status. But remember that status isn't about external markers. It's about the internal reality that creates those external markers naturally. The man who sleeps with women instantly doesn't have to tell them he's high value. They feel it in how he moves through the world, how he handles challenges, how comfortable he is with his own power. And that feeling bypasses every rational filter they've developed. If this video has opened your eyes to the deeper psychology of attraction, if you're ready to stop chasing and start attracting, here's what I want you to do. First, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more content that challenges everything you think you know about human psychology. Second, comment selector below if you're committed to developing the kind of authentic value that makes you naturally selective rather than desperately hoping to be selected. And third, ask yourself this crucial question. What kind of man would I need to become to naturally attract the kind of woman I actually want to be with? Then start becoming that man. Because the women worth having are waiting for someone worth choosing, and that someone could be you if you're willing to do the